welcome to an Everyday Canines video. This is the Drive Game series, and in this series we're looking at why drive is important and how we can get the most drive out of any dog using various fun games to really engage them and give them confidence and joy for what they're doing. So in this episode we're talking about why is drive important, because you hear it sometimes from people, especially new handlers who are just getting into things. They say to you, oh, I don't want too much drive. I don't want my dog to be too fast. I'm not that fast. I'd rather they didn't drive too much. I hear that quite a bit, especially, not older handlers who are perhaps getting just into it with a collie or something. And they say, oh, I'm quite happy as long as they walk with me. I can get to where I need to be to tell them where to go. Okay, that's a complete misnomer. You want drive whether you're a fast handler, whether you're a slow handler. It's vital for all your agility career. You need that drive to get those dogs powering out. It's going to help you if you're a slow handler, because if you're a slow handler and your dog is driven, it means you can get your dog out doing stuff away from you. I know some people say, well, once the dog is away, I can't then control what they're doing. Maybe they'll take an obstacle I don't want. That's a common thing you hear. And unfortunately, that is because they have come up in a system where the handling has to be on top of the dog all the time. True distance handlers, or even in the middle distance handlers, because there's quite a variety, they want that dog to be able to drive out away from them, and they're capable of controlling the dog, doing stuff away from them. And it means that they don't have to maybe run. So why do we want drive? Well, drive first of all equals that our dog is confident in what it's doing. If I've got a line of jumps and I tell my dog to go over them and the dog is driving over them, I know that dog is confident in its job to get down a line of jumps. If my dog was to get to number 2 in this sequence and go, well, I don't know, I can tell my dog isn't confident with its job. And that also equals that it hasn't got enough drive for what it's doing. Same applies to any obstacle, whether it's a tunnel, whether it's the weaves, whether it's the dog walk. You want that to say the word, say dog walk, and you want your dog to drive out to it. Wherever you are, drive out to it. So it's confidence. Secondly, it's independence. If your dog is driven and they know the obstacle name, because that's what you're going to use, you can be using verbals, then if you say the word, they should power out and get to that obstacle independent of you. And that is vitally important. Again, as the courses are getting bigger, even fast handlers are struggling to be right on top of dogs now, especially some of these European courses, which are absolutely enormous. You need your dog to do its job so you can get where you need to be next. Lastly, it's about that speed. Vital thing is speed. Now, I know people say, well, I'm a fun handler. I go to some competitions, but really it's just for a bit of fun. I don't really care as long as my dog will go clear. At this moment in time, that's what you're thinking. But speed is another indication that your dog is having a good time and it's fun. When your dog is going out there and running at top speed around a course, that's because they're enjoying what they're doing. Yes, some dogs are naturally driven or do that anyway, but it's when you see the slower dogs, what do I mean by slower dogs? I mean dogs that maybe aren't your typical agility dogs, but when you see them powering around a course at their top speed, you know that dog is enjoying what it's doing. And when your dog isn't, when your dog is plodding, perhaps with you, and they're not having a good time. I'll be honest with you. If your dog's plodding around with you and it's not even breaking into a slight gallop, it's not really having a great time out there. Think about your dog's favourite thing, like a ball, it could be a bird they like to chase or something like that, and think how they react when they see that. Maybe you throw a ball and your dog powers out to it. That's what you want to see in agility, because when your dog is powering out to a ball, you know your dog enjoys fetching the ball. We don't throw a ball out for a dog that goes, oh, really? I've got to go get that? Okay. Because you wouldn't. You'd say, well, they don't enjoy that. We don't bother. The same applies with agility. You want your dog to be taking that as fast as possible, because that tells you it's enjoying what it's doing. And because that's the ultimate goal of agility, we want to be having fun. We want to be having fun. The dog wants to be having fun. We want to be having fun as a team. And that is why drive is so important. So let's talk about some of the myths and things that get bundled in with the idea of drive and break them down and look at them. So I talked about it a little bit already, but one of the myths that we come across a lot when we're talking about drive is people, slower handlers, and hands up, I'm a slow handler. People say, okay, really I don't want my dog to be driving out too much because I can't get to what I do. Confession time. When I first was running Sparrow, that was me. I said, I don't want that dog going too fast because I can't get to where I need to be to do, I don't know, say a wing wrap or around the back, because my handling at that time relied on my body motion. And so I was constantly trying to slow her down. Sparrow, slow down, don't go too fast, don't go do this, because I needed to be where I needed to be. Now, because she was a fast dog, and on straight she could, power, that got me through the lower levels okay. Because she was fast, so she picked up again the bits where I could let her drive out. But as I got along, I realised this isn't what I want. This isn't what I need. I want my dog to be able to get on and do its job and know what it's doing without me having to say, slow down, I just need to get here. So I had to change my handling system, but that's another story. And this is what I want to talk to you about with slow handlers and fast handlers. Just because you're a slow handler doesn't mean you want a slow dog. What you want is you want your dog to know its job sufficiently that it can go out and do a round the back on this while you're stood there. That's all about distance handling. And if you are that slightly slower handler, then that is something you're going to have to work on and build up. But you still want that drive because it will help you so much. Imagine this. Imagine I've got this course set up, 3 jumps, there's a tunnel and a curve, and 3 jumps back. And that's all I've got my dog to do. It's probably a nice little jumping course, but I don't want to have to run all the way up to this tunnel, get my dog in the tunnel, and all the way back. If I can stand there, send my dog up to the tunnel, drive, and then I can maybe do a front cross somewhere over there to get to the next bit. How brilliant is that for me as the slower handler? I've got less running to do. I can know that my dog is going to get up there, do its business, and I'm there. That is what you want as a slower handler. You want it as a fast handler too, because even the fastest handler is not as fast as their dog. And that is what you're going to need. So drive is vitally important, whether you're a slow handler, whether you're a fast handler, whether you're in the middle handler, whatever type of handler you are, you want that drive. Okay, so next I want to talk about safety, because we are teaching drive, we are teaching fast speed, but we want to do it in a safe fashion. Let's talk about surfacing. So we're set up on grass and it is dry grass. We have had some rain, but it's dry. I avoid doing things like this when the ground is really wet and actually potentially when it's really dry. Why? Because you don't want your dog to slip. When we're teaching drive, we want our dog to be able to power as hard as possible safely. If you imagine you're running along a surface and it slips out from under your feet, or your feet slip, what does that do? It knocks your confidence to run flat out. Maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but because if you're a really driven person, but over the course of time you start to, I'm just going to be a bit more cautious. That defeats the object of what we're achieving. So we want our surfacing to be non-slip as much as possible. Obviously we are in a natural environment, but we want to be training on grass that's not overly wet. So this is quite nice. So it has rained, but it's dried out. We don't obviously want to be training in muddy conditions, where again there's the possibility of slipping. Another surface too we can train on is a sand surface in a menage, like for horse arenas. Now again, we need to be a little bit picky, because some horse arenas, if you look at the flooring, it's so deep, which is ideal for horses. It's actually too deep for dogs to get a useful grip on, and it's actually so deep that actually drags the power out of them. If you imagine running on the sand on a beach, if you do that, it's called resistance training. because you're having to really work hard, you're not getting the best out of yourself. So wherever we're doing, we're trying to get the best out of our dog. So we're getting them to power without slipping, without having too much bother. Another thing to bear in mind is impact. We are not going to be training on concrete, definitely not. Any hard surface, no. Because though we are going to be mainly working on the flat, we will be doing jumping, and we do not want our dogs landing on a surface that's going to cause a lot of impact strain on the joints. Years and years ago, I used to dance, and one of the things they used to say about dancing was you never ever trained on a concrete floor or any surface like that. Always had to be a sprung floor to ensure there was a suitable low impact on the dancer's legs, else you'd sustain injuries. It's exactly the same with the dogs. So, I'm not going to be doing drive games across a patio. The ground has to be sufficient that it's going to absorb the impact when they land, when they power off. We're protecting those joints the whole time. Same applies if you're indoors and you're training. Yes, you can drive indoors, but you're not going to be training on a slippery floor like laminate or wood. Or even if you're on laminate or wood, you put carpet down, but it mustn't be carpet that slips out from under the dog's feet. Same issues. We're risking the dog being injured, because if you imagine your dog's going along and it slips out from you, that's an injury waiting to happen. Secondly, it's going to reduce the dog's confidence to run, because they're going to be constantly judging their stride to prevent themselves from slipping. Okay, now I want to talk about puppy safety. So drive games are something you can do with a puppy from a fairly early age. However, always safety with puppies. So if I'm doing a drive game with a puppy, and some of these early drive games you can do, I am not going to be asking them to jump anything. I don't ask puppies to do any jumping till probably, like with the little guys, maybe 10 months I might start to consider putting them up a little bit. But to be honest, I'm quite happy to wait till they're a year old. Once I know that their joints are coming together, they're formed, and I know that I'm not going to be risking putting any extra strain on growing joints. So when you're doing puppy training, and I'd probably say that some of these games you can do straight away, some of the drive to toy games, some of the later games you probably would do from about 6 months onwards, but you would not do anything with a pole. What you would do, you'd either have your dog run through wings, say for instance this jump, you'd have him run through wings, or you'd use what they call puppy bumps. They sound fancy, but they're not. Basically, you buy a piece of guttering from your local DIY store, and if you think about guttering, it's a gentle curve. You wouldn't go for the really tight curves, you go for a gentle curve. And you cut it to the length you want and you put it on the ground, and all it does is it looks like a bit like a speed bump in a road. That gives your dog something to think about as it comes down, because it gives you an indication where the jump bar would be eventually. But the dog doesn't have to jump it, they can literally just step over it. I'd rather do that than have poles on the ground, because poles, if your dog was to accidentally stand on this pole, their foot would roll off it and they could hurt themselves. Whereas the puppy bumps, because they sit flat on the ground, yes, the foot would slip off it a bit, but they shouldn't hurt themselves. To be fair, I don't see them often ever doing that, but it's something to bear in mind. But as I said, yes, you can certainly build and work on your drive with your puppy, but be cautious about it, and I will go through the games and I will say to you whether I think this game is suitable for a puppy of a specific age and when you might want to be training that. And certainly I always err on the side of caution. Okay, another thing to think about is how many repetitions do we do of a drive game? And here's the big deal, we do not do many repetitions. The whole point of drive is we want as much power as we can get straight out from the gate. If we were to do this sequence, free jumps, 10 times, what do you think that dogs will be doing by the end of the 10th one? Well, okay, they might be a powerhouse of a dog, they might still be going, but you know what? They're going to be looking a bit tired. Even the most powery dog, if you've done this repeatedly 10 times, and what you're going to be rewarding at the end is not their best runs. You want this to be a snapshot of the best your dog can do. So you know what? 2 to 3 reps, that is sufficient to achieve a really good run. Now, you might say to me, oh, well, I did 2 to 3 reps, but I know my dog has got more in the tank in the sense that I know they can go faster, and I was a bit disappointed with that. That's fine, but you don't repeat it that day. You go away, you come the next day, and you do it again once your dog is rested. We want quality over quantity. We want to be rewarding the fastest our dog can go. We don't want to be, this is not about getting that reward for, accuracy. So I mean, sometimes we train things a lot to get it right. This is not about that so much. There shouldn't be too much they can't get right. We want to be rewarding that speed. So we would work on this over a series of days to get that best speed. And the important thing is to think is once you're getting that best speed from your dog, you would limit how much you would reward the less good runs. But yes, certainly this is quality over quantity. Don't overdo it. I would probably call this a 2 to 3 game warm-up. Then you go on and do some skills training. And the other thing is I wouldn't do this after I've done a load of other stuff. Because again, your dog is a little bit tired. You know, we don't want our dog to be thinking that drive is something they do a bit half-hearted, that they do when they're a bit tired. We want them to be thinking that the drive is the most powerful thing I do, it's the fastest thing I do, it's the most confident thing I do. So always begin on your drive games, keep it short, and make sure you're getting good quality drive. And the last thing I want to talk to you about, and you'll see it through these videos, is restrained recalls over obstacles, or restraining the dog before running over an obstacle, versus setting them up in a wait and go. So if I just call over Swift, Swift it's, I know you've seen a fly, or call Sparrow, Sparrow. So a restrained start, if you like. So a restrained start, Sparrow, can you get up? She says, I'm sitting here. Sparrow's got a harness on at the moment. I wouldn't normally do this with a harness on. What I would do, can you shuffle around, my maid, so we can show you what you want to do? Can we shuffle around? That's it. Right. So I wouldn't normally have it on harness. What I would normally do is I would put my hand in front of Sparrow and just gently push back. Now I've trained my dogs with this, so they're not worried about that. But you could on a smaller dog or a young dog, if you weren't having any jumps at all, they were just running, you could do it on a harness, so you're pulling on them, even a collar. The idea is that it's a opposition reaction. By pulling them back, they start to pull forward. When they go, they've got that little bit more oomph in the tank. They go woomph. If I throw a toy out and show you. Why God? Oh, she says, just got good. So I've got a toy out there. I'm going to show Tara's toy. Where's the toy? Where's the toy? Can you see how she's pulling already? Where's the toy? Where's the toy? I'm pulling back and then I'm going to let her go. Ready? Get it! Do you see that's that extra little oomph, that extra little power? Because your dog's getting all excited. You're getting your dog revved up. Yeah, you're getting them now. Oh. That's what we want in drive. We want them to be really, going. So a lot of the drive games we do with restrained recalls. No, not restrained recalls. They are sort of a restrained. They're recall into a toy, but you're doing it with restraint because it helps. And as I said, I did that on a harness, but I can do it. I haven't got a toy out there at the moment, so this is bad. But I can do it with my hand here in front of Sparrow. She'll go there, and certainly I do that with Swift. You get that extra little out there. Now, of course, when we're in competition, we don't necessarily want to do that. I mean, how many of us are sitting on a start line? First of all, we wouldn't have a harness on, but we're not going to be wanting to do that because we want to be ahead. So, I'm going to show you some games to play that you can do by getting your dog to power off a start line with drive. And we're going to do that as a separate exercise that we get your dog to power out of a weight. But in the meantime, for most of these games, because we're not looking at this as being part of a course as such, we just want to train that drive, that power. We're going to be doing most of ours by restraining the dog and putting that bit of opposition reflex on them so that they will power out and get the best out of them. So don't worry when you think, oh, hang on, she's doing this all from restraint, I need to do mine from a weight. We will get to that, and there will be a episode that does all about that. But it is something that will help your dog to get that best drive out. Okay, I think we need to be on to the games, don't you? Games! I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video. If you have, you might like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.